basement was dimly lit and silent, save for the soft crackle of a candle flame. Shadows clung to the stone like old regrets. Mira sat on a torn blanket near a small pile of supplies. Tins of food, bottled water, a wrapped loaf of mould-dusted bread. The air was thick with dampness and dust. But for once, not fear. Across from her, reclined in a salvaged velvet armchair, sat Veyron, his ancient form still skeletal, but more composed. His skin had drawn tighter to his bones since feeding, and his eyes, once sunken hollows, now gleamed with a dim, dangerous light. Mira took a slow sip of water, the silence stretching between them like a rope too worn to snap. Then she asked it, the question she'd wanted to ask since the beginning. How did all this happen? Veyron's smile was soft, almost nostalgic. He steepled his long fingers, leaning forward as if preparing to recite a bedtime story no one should ever hear. Ah, he said, the fall, the beginning of the end. He gazed into the candlelight, voice lowering. It started with one, a single Lycan, not a mindless beast, but something worse, something cursed. Its blood was black, its hunger insatiable, not born, but created. A plague in fur and fang. Mira's expression tightened. Where did it come from? It was imprisoned, Veyron said, kept buried in a vault, deep beneath the old woods beyond the black cliffs, bound by more than stone or chains, bound by blood. You see, there was once a family, the Grahams, a mortal bloodline older than some elders. Their purpose, their very identity, was to guard the beast, to ensure it never walked the earth again. Mira blinked. A human family guarded a cursed Lycan. They were no ordinary family, Veyron said, voice reverent. The Grahams were chosen by Lysanor himself, the god of Lycans. Not all Lycans worship him now, but once his name commanded fear. He knew the cursed one was too dangerous, even for his own kind, so he passed judgment. He selected a bloodline of mortals, bound them by oath and spirit. They were to guard the beast forever, ensure it never walked free. They were humanity's blade held at the throat of a god's mistake. So what went wrong? Mira asked. Veyron's smile vanished. Something always does. Maybe it was betrayal, maybe desperation, or perhaps the curse itself grew restless and whispered to one of them. Either way, it broke free. He looked her dead in the eye, and when it did, the world burned. Veyron leaned back, his voice turning brittle with old sorrow. The curse spread faster than anyone imagined. The elders tried to fight, the humans tried to flee, but nothing worked. Even our oldest, those who had stood against plagues, fires, wars, they were torn apart. Our powers were useless. We were, how do the humans say it? Paper to their scissors. Mira tilted her head. And no rock. Veyron actually chuckled, though the sound was bone dry. Exactly, my dear. There should have been a rock in that little game. Something to stop them. But it never came. And now? They rule. They don't just hunt, they conquer. And as they conquered, their numbers grew. One curse became a legion. A swarm of monsters birthed in blood and bound by nothing. Mira leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You said the Alpha, the one on the throne now, can see through your shadows. Yes, Veyron said, his expression darkening. But the beast on the throne now is not the one who began this. What happened to the original? He was challenged. That is the way of the Lycans. When one believes they're strong enough to lead, they challenge the Alpha in blood. They fight, Only one survives, and so the cursed one who began it all eventually fell. And the one now? Veyron's face was grave. He is powerful, perhaps the most powerful of them all. I have not seen him, but I have felt him. His presence is like a storm pressed against your skin. He does not need to hunt. His power draws the others like gravity. Mira went quiet, then finally asked, "Will we survive this?" Veyron was silent for a long time. Then, with a small, tragic smile, he answered, "Probably not." Mira's heart twisted, but then he leaned forward. "But we will try, because sometimes even a dying breath can carry a spark." He looked up, thoughtful. "There is something missing in this world, something that should be here, a presence, a soul, a flame." "Someone?" Mira asked. "Maybe," he whispered. "Maybe not." She waited. Then he added, "There is a prophecy." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You're joking." "I wish I were," he said. "It's one of those old elder stories, told when fledglings needed hope or fear. It says, when the elders are at their darkest hour, when the shadows are too thin to hide them, one of their kind will rise, a being with a gift untouched by age or war, a soul of fire, and shadows so deep, even the cursed will tremble." Mira stared at him. He shrugged. "Bit dramatic, but we were always a theatrical bunch." "Sounds like nonsense." "Maybe it is, but if this isn't the darkest hour, then what is?" He raised his glass of water like a toast. "Let's hope the prophecy's fashionably late and not long forgotten." There is no ceremony, there is no crown, only the throne and the right to sit upon it. The Lycan throne is not carved by hands nor built by kings. It is shaped by conquest, a jagged, towering seat of fused bone, rusted steel, and charred stone. It rests deep in the heart of the old cathedral, now called the Howl Spire. Sunlight never reaches it. The wind avoids its doors. The throne remembers every death it was built upon, and seated upon it now is power incarnate. The Lycans do not speak his name. They call him the one who remains, because no matter how many have risen, only he still sits. Long ago, the first fall. The first Alpha fell to treachery, not by claws but betrayal. The second was stronger, but foolish. The third held the throne for years, until the fourth tore out his throat under a blood-red moon. There have been many. The throne was not sacred. It was a challenge, an invitation to violence, a test of dominance. To sit was to be hunted. To rise meant spilling blood. To rule meant becoming something more than beast. And then he came. No one knew from where. No bloodline, no legends, just presence. When he challenged the Alpha at the time, an enormous brute named Korag, none believed he'd win. Korag was brutal, cunning, unstoppable in the field. The fight lasted seconds. The challenger didn't roar, didn't boast. He moved. A blur of black fur and white eyes, he struck like lightning, tearing through Korag's chest with one massive claw, lifting him into the air like a child's toy. When the body hit the ground, silence fell across the Howl Spire. He did not speak. He simply sat, and none have dared remove him since. Not long ago, another challenger. There was a Lycan named Vasruk, powerful and proud. He had torn through dozens in the southern hunting packs, amassing followers, howling his name into the bones of fallen cities. He believed the throne was waiting for him, that he was chosen. He entered the cathedral before dusk, his fur slick with the blood of his own pack, killed to prove his dominance. The one who remains did not rise, he simply watched. Vasruk charged. The air split with motion. In a blink, the Alpha moved through him, not around, through. Vasruk dropped to the stone, his head rolling in another direction. His body hit the ground in silence. The pack watching did not howl. They knelt, not from fear, but because they knew this was not a Lycan. This was something beyond. He sits still now, motionless on his throne of death. His fur is black as void, not fur but shadow, writhing like smoke in moonlight. His eyes are not eyes, just pale silver discs glowing from within. The runes of fallen elders are scarred across his chest, a message written in wounds. We tried. His claws are longer than blades. His breath steams in the cold, even when the wind does not blow. No Lycan speaks near him. No vampire dares approach his territory. Even the wind dies around his throne. He does not eat. He does not sleep. He simply waits, because one day something will challenge him again. And when it does, he will rise and end it, just like the rest. The candle's flame flickered, though there was no wind. Mira and Veyron sat in silence, she sharpening her blade against the stone, he nursing a cup of dark liquid that wasn't quite wine. The basement had grown quiet since their last conversation, but something about the stillness now felt heavier. Then they heard it. Footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Running. Boots on broken stone. Gasps. A distant shout. The sound of something far larger behind them. Snarling. Mira stood instantly. What was that? Veyron didn't move. His long fingers curled around the stem of his cup. His eyes stared forward, unfocused. Footsteps, he murmured. 2, no 3. 2 human, 1 not. Mira's heart pounded. Someone's out there. Veyron looked at her, amused. Do not panic, my dear. They cannot find us here. We are hidden. She frowned. I found you. He smiled, fanged and sly. I allowed it. Oh, Mira said, eyes narrowing. Right. Veyron closed his eyes briefly, his face still. Then he spoke with eerie calm. A man and a woman, fleeing. The Lycan are not far behind. They will not last long. Mira stepped towards the exit. Can we help them? Veyron raised an eyebrow. I don't think that's wise. Why not? Why are they running through ruins this close to Lycan territory? Are they careless? Desperate? Bait? He paused. Or worse, killers themselves. Mira clenched her fists. Look, there aren't many of us left. If we don't help each other, we're already dead. Veyron tilted his head. You mortals and your noble impulses. Very well. He stood with a creak of joints. But you'll have to reach them. One look at me, and they'll flee just as fast. Fair enough, Mira said, already grabbing her coat. The outside world was just as broken as before. Ash drifted from the sky. The sun, barely visible through the clouds, painted the buildings in crimson tones. Mira darted from cover to cover, boots crunching over debris, the air tense with scent and sound. Then she saw them, a man and a woman, barely adults. mud-streaked faces, torn clothes, eyes wide with terror. They sprinted between the remains of a collapsed market, shouting as something massive tore through the ruins behind them. A Lycan hunting party, 4 of them, moving like shadows with muscle, teeth bared, snarling, hungry. Mira stepped out from the alley. "Hey, over here!" The 2 humans saw her and changed direction instantly. "Help us!" the woman screamed. The Lycan turned toward all 3. They howled in unison. The hunt was on. Mira ran. "Veyron!" she shouted as she neared the ruined chapel. Now would be a great time to cheat death. The 2 humans stumbled after her, panic in every movement. One tripped, but Mira yanked him up. The Lycans were almost on them. One leapt, snarling, claws outstretched. And then the shadows moved. They didn't spread. They lashed. Like tendrils of ink, blackness surged from the chapel's base, crawling like smoke across the ground, and then rising like a wall between predator and prey. The Lycans skidded to a halt, snarled. One pawed at the barrier, but didn't cross. The air rippled. The shadows whispered. They remembered this scent. They remembered him. Mira led the 2 strangers inside, hauling them down into the crypt, just as the shadows sealed the entrance behind them, like a curtain falling on a stage. They collapsed inside, gasping, coughing, still shaking. Veyron stood calmly in the centre of the room, as if he hadn't just repelled death itself. His smile was cold. "Welcome," he said. "You're safe. For now." The moment they crossed the threshold into the crypt, the 2 strangers screamed. The man scrambled back, knocking over a supply crate, while the woman pulled a rusted blade from her coat with shaking hands. "An elder," the man shouted. "He'll kill us." The woman added, wild-eyed, "They drink blood. He's going to feed." Veyron blinked, almost offended. Mira stepped between them and the vampire, arms wide. Hey, calm down. If he wanted you dead, you'd already be bleeding." The woman hesitated, lowering the blade slightly, but still tense. The man looked between Mira and Veyron, sweat running down his dirt-smeared face. "Why would an elder help us?" "Because I told him to," Mira said. There was a beat of silence. Then Veyron sighed theatrically. "Technically, I agreed to help. It was more of a reluctant compromise than obedience." The woman's breathing slowed. She tucked the blade away, hesitantly. "We're sorry. It's just... we've seen what your kind can do." "We all have," Mira said gently. "But right now, he's the only reason you're not dead." They nodded, slowly. "Names?" Mira asked. The man cleared his throat. "I'm Jonas." "Kayla," the woman said. We were with a larger group, about 9 of us, camped out near the riverbed. We had a watch, walls, everything." Mira's stomach turned. "Let me guess. The Lycans found you." Kayla's voice broke slightly. "They didn't just find us. They slaughtered everyone, ripped through like they were nothing. We ran. We jumped into the lake, tried to throw them off." Jonas added, "Didn't work. They found our scent again. We've been running ever since." Veyron leaned forward from his chair, his voice low and dry. "That is the problem with your kind. You cluster." They both looked at him. In the old world, travelling in numbers offered strength, community, protection. He tapped a clawed finger against his temple. Today, It's little more than a stronger smell. The Lycans don't hunt by sight. They hunt by scent. And the bigger the group, the louder the blood sings. Jonas muttered, "That's grim." Veyron smiled. "It's reality, dear boy. We elders prefer solitude. Even before the fall, it's cleaner, quieter, easier to survive." Mira gave them a moment, then spoke. "You're safe now, but we need to be clear. There's a cost to staying here." Jonas and Kayla looked at her, then at Veyron. Veyron stood, his form casting long, writhing shadows on the crypt walls. "I mask your scent. That is not a trick. It is power. Power that requires replenishment." Kayla's eyes narrowed. "You mean—" "Blood," Veyron said simply. "Yours. Not all of it, of course. A donation. A slice of your energy to keep the wolves at bay." Jonas shook his head. "You want us to feed you?" Veyron smirked. "I want to keep you alive. A drop or two is a small price for not being turned into mulch." Kayla looked at Mira. "It's the only way," Mira said. "I've done it. He doesn't take much, just enough to do whatever it is he does." They stood silent. Then Jonas exhaled. "If it keeps us breathing, so be it." Kayla nodded slowly. "Yeah, we'll do it." Veyron clapped his hands once lightly. "Wonderful. What a delightful little gathering we've become." He turned back toward the corridor. "Quite the party we're having," he muttered. "If we allow any more guests, I may need to consider relocation. A crypt with better lighting and a slightly less blood-soaked ambience." Mira cracked the faintest smile. "You're not funny." "Humour is subjective," Veyron replied. Outside, in the ruins beneath the ash-choked sky, a shadow moved. Not cast by light, not shaped by flame, alive. It slithered along a collapsed stone wall, rippled across the surface like oil on water, and then stepped free. The shadow took form, an elder, tall, wrapped in flowing black cloth, her eyes glinting faintly beneath a bone-white hood. Her lips curled into a smirk as she gazed towards the hidden crypt. "Veyron, you sneaky corpse." Her voice was like smoke soaked in silk. "You've got your own little pantry now. 3 delicious humans. Fresh, willing. Lucky you." Below ground. Veyron paused mid-sentence. His eyes flicked towards the stairs. "Wait." His tone changed. "Someone is out there." Mira tensed instantly. Kayla gripped her blade again. Jonas moved beside the supplies, ready to grab a pipe. "Another elder," Veyron said, voice low. "I can feel them. Barely. I can't quite sense who. That's rare." He turned, stepping toward the wall, shadows twitching at his heels. Then silence. "Gone," he whispered. "They didn't stay long, but they felt me. They were close, too close. And then they vanished." He turned back to the group. "We must be careful. Some of my kind are not like me." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You mean charming and cryptic?" "I mean ruthless and hungry. Some elders survived because they were smart. Others because they were monsters. And if this one is still alive, they're powerful. Very." He looked toward the shadows thoughtfully. "They didn't stay long enough for me to know who—" "And you never will." The voice came from behind him, smooth, dark, familiar. Veyron spun, fangs bared. shadows rising from his hands like claws. The three humans backed against the far wall, ready to fight or die trying. But Veyron's stance slowly relaxed. His expression shifted, and then he smiled. "I should have known," he said softly. "There's only one I could never sense." From the darkest corner of the crypt, a shape emerged. A woman, tall, ageless, her skin pale like moonlight, her eyes sharp as daggers. She wore black robes layered with subtle silver lining, and her presence was regal without effort. There was elegance in her movements and something behind her eyes that Mira couldn't read. Power, ancient and controlled. "You'll never sense me, dear brother," she said with a faint smirk. Mira's eyes widened. Kayla gasped. Jonas blinked. "Wait, your sister?" Mira asked. Veyron gave a slight nod. "Yes, I believed her dead. It's been over a century." The woman gave a short bow. "Not quite. I, too, learned the art of masking, though I must say, your little sanctuary was almost charming enough to keep me away. Almost." "Oh, forgive my manners," Veyron said, straightening his coat and gesturing dramatically. "This is Elaria, my sister, and until 10 seconds ago, presumed deceased." Mira and the others bowed cautiously. Elaria gave a polite nod. "Don't bow too low. I'm not royalty, just very good at staying alive." Veyron sighed, gesturing around them. "Well, quite the little gathering we've become. Humans, prophecy, ancient siblings reuniting over blood and ash. We're practically a family." He glanced at the walls. "This crypt's getting cramped." Elaria smiled. "I thought you might say that." She stepped forward, folding her hands calmly. "I know just the place.